Down, down.
Luigi. Oh, back up. That is completely out of touch. And an insult to the intelligence of the American people and its lived experience.
What would drive a young individual with Ivy League academic credentials, a polite personality, and a life of luxury, with a promising future ahead, to throw it all away and commit an act where even death penalty was debated? A 26-year-old who spent all of his school years studying AI and technology, who had experience and insider knowledge in the healthcare system, and who chose to use his expertise in these fields to commit a deadly act of terror against UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Does what the highly intelligent and intellectual Luigi Mangione know play a role in why the authorities are acting so quickly, trying to silence him, and stripping him of his right to speak? Why are the American authorities so set on making sure Mangione won't see the light of day again? This murder, which occurred on December 4, 2024, brought to light hidden wrongdoings in the healthcare system, and is essentially an embodiment of greater societal problems in America.
When you think of the Mangione family, you think of an esteemed family that has done a lot for the community. When I first heard the name, I thought it had to be the different family. It was very out of character for anything I've ever known about the family.
I feel like it's cliche. Everybody is like, he was a quiet guy, but like he was even more normal than that.
He had everything going for him, but he wasn't really snobby. He was humble. He was unassuming and easy to approach.
From humble beginnings to dark ambitions, this is the story of Luigi Mangione. Born Luigi Nicholas Mangione, May 6, 1998, Luigi is of Italian descent. He spent the majority of his life in his birthplace, the unincorporated community of Towson in Baltimore, Maryland, where he grew up alongside his parents and two sisters. Son to Louis Mangione, an elite figure in the region, Luigi and his family owe their prestige and increasing wealth to his grandfather, Nicholas Mangione. He was a self-made millionaire, and it's thanks to his efforts in the real estate business of Baltimore that the last name, Mangione, and Luigi's immediate family in particular are considered a prominent family in the region, influential, highly respected, and wealthy. Following the passing of his grandparents Nicholas and Mary Mangione, in 2023, Luigi was set to become heir of a share of their wealth, which holds the value of somewhere between $30 to $100 million, to be divided between her 10 children and 37 grandchildren. However, due to his crime, he is now deprived of his inheritance, as Mary had stated in her will that if any of her descendants are charged, indicted, convicted of or plead guilty to any felony, including what she cited as a physically violent act against another person, they should be excluded. Among the Luigi family's possession of healthcare facilities, real estate companies, a radio station, and numerous country clubs, some of their acquired prestigious ownerships include the Turf Valley Resort in Howard County and the Hayfields Country Club in Baltimore County. In fact, the Mangione family owns Lorien Health Services, a network of nursing homes in Maryland, where Luigi is said to have volunteered in 2014. Though popular for its amazing services, just like the majority of health facilities in the U.S., Lorien Health Services has also been fined and reported on multiple occasions for allegedly violating the civil monetary penalties law by retaining overpayments, meaning they perhaps tricked insurers such as Medicare or other health plans into giving them more money than needed, ultimately abusing these services and committing fraud, and also suggesting that Lorien Health Services might have overcharged their clients for the services they offer. For the Mangione family to be accused of these claims, and Luigi himself being the child of millionaires, is ironic, considering Luigi's strong aversion to unjust abuse of power, and the greed of those in high positions in the healthcare system, as well as his disagreement towards the ideology and ways of capitalism in general. Described as a loving, caring, kind and overall a very generous group, the Mangione family has a long history of making generous donations of millions to healthcare facilities, churches, schools, and medical centers in the region. Their acquaintance is broad and family widespread. Luigi is a cousin to many, including that of Maryland State Delegate Nino Mangione, a Republican who represents the Baltimore suburbs in the legislature. Both of older age than he is, he has two sisters, one an artist, and the eldest a respected doctor. As for his mother, she is owner of a small travel enterprise called KZM Boutique Travel, which offers specialized tours to Italy and other countries. Familial tensions are believed to have deepened his feelings of societal rebellion, and are thought to have contributed to his decision to commit his murderous act. Numerous clues hint at his severed relationship with his family, many of which suggest he especially didn't have a good relationship with his mother due to differences in values and ideological beliefs. Their distance only grew wider with time, and she even went as far as to hire a private investigator to find her son after he had estranged himself from his family for over a year, later deciding to file a missing person report. In a review he posted on his Goodreads account for the book The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, Mangione recalled the times his mother would force him to use his right hand to eat steak despite being left-handed. He mentioned that her reasoning for this was so that he would adhere to what society considered the norm, and Mangione has repeatedly expressed his still-present disdain towards simply accepting things the way they are, growing a rebellious side that didn't believe in acting only in accordance with societal norms. On his Goodreads accounts to be read list, it seems Mangione had planned to read a variety of self-help books, among which was listed the New York Times bestseller, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, published by clinical psychologist and author Lindsay Gibson. This book addresses the matter of healing from growing up with distant, rejecting, and self-involved parents. Luigi Mangione attended the prestigious Gilman School, a small and tight-knit private boys' institution in Baltimore, Maryland, where his parents spent over $37,000 per year for his education. He graduated in 2016, and his graduate yearbook, his parents named as his strong points his passion for knowledge, his genuine respect for others, and his courage and strength to be his true self. Numerous interviews conclude that his friends' description of him in his high school days is still truthful now. They highlighted his high intelligence, strong curiosity, quiet and reserved nature, and the genuine kindness and smiles he shared with all those around him. He was supposedly highly active in the community, a leader of numerous clubs, an avid sports fan who played soccer and wrestled, and overall someone who excelled academically both in and out of the classroom. At graduation, he was chosen valedictorian to deliver a speech, where he spoke of the importance of his class value of commitment to the school's tradition, and of their grand sense of innovation, courage in exploration, and creativity, telling a story of how his class sold Chick-fil-A sandwiches to the school as part of a fundraiser to make more events. Between May 2016 and August 2017, Mangione was employed as a UI programming intern at video game company Firaxis Games while completing his undergraduate degree. In 2020, he earned a Bachelor of Science in Engineering, BSc, in Computer Engineering from the University of Pennsylvania, and subsequently earned himself a Master's degree of Science in Engineering, MSc, in Computer and Information Science. Though his time in school and main graduate studies greatly veered towards the subject of artificial intelligence, he also pursued a minor in mathematics during his undergraduate years. In November 2020, he began working remotely as a data engineer at TrueCar, a car retailing website based in California, though his employment at the company abruptly ended sometime in 2023. He and his family reportedly resided in Maryland, where, as of December 2024, the family owns a $1.9 million mansion located on one of their many country club properties. According to verified sources, as of February 2024, Mangione stayed in a luxury high-rise apartment building in Honolulu, Hawaii, in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom corner unit in the building, at 801 South Street, after selling a house almost $1 million in worth, which he had been gifted by his parents back in June. This Hawaiian shared residency is where Mangione lived leading up to the few months before his arrest. Past roommates who had been living with him in shared spaces have voiced their utter shock following the reveal of his crime, describing his arrest as unimaginable and extremely shocking. The accused of UnitedHealth Group CEO Brian Thompson's murder had long struggled with his health, from contracting Lyme disease at the age of 13, to facing more struggles later on in life, such as irritable bowel syndrome, brain fog, and insomnia. But among all things that he's dealt with, it seems that his severe spinal condition was what took away his last bit of patience and hope, severely derailing his life, before beginning to voice his criticism and remarks on the American healthcare industry on his now suspended various social media pages. During his college years, he reportedly complained of brain fog, which affected his studies and his mental health, but what angered him most was that doctors couldn't figure out what was happening to him. "It's absolutely brutal to have such a life-halting issue," was a line found in one of his many writings, where he wrote about his struggles with balancing his cognitive decline and hefty amount of schoolwork, saying he even considered dropping out of college, where he felt like he was only getting what felt like 10% of a regular college experience. Between 2018 to 2024, he had especially been active in back pain-related subreddits on Reddit, where he wrote in detail about exactly what it is he felt, as well as his efforts to relieve his pain and uncomfortable bodily sensations, even going as far as to sharing suggestions and messages of support to others dealing with similar problems. He went from encouraging others with his condition to seek medical assistance, to using his account to express his anger regarding what he felt was the healthcare system's lack of response and care towards his condition. His back pain significantly worsened in 2022 following a surfing accident, and again later on, after slipping on a piece of paper and undergoing a failed surgery that left worthless screws fused to his spine. He wrote that his experience with dealing with both his spinal injuries and the healthcare system put his life on hold and restrained him from doing typical activities of a 20-year-old, and brought him lots of difficulty in even the simplest of actions such as sitting down. His former landlord in Honolulu told the media about the extent of the burden that came with being in constant pain due to a pinched nerve and misaligned spine. He knew that dating and being physically intimate with his back condition wasn't possible. "I remember him telling me that, and my heart just breaks." Oftenly describing his pain as debilitating, his handwritten notes revealed that he suffered from spondylolisthesis, a rare but intense displacement of bones in the spine which, according to friends and family, caused him pain so extreme that he was bedridden for days at a time. This led to a deterioration of both his physical and mental health, likely playing a role in the justice he sought through his murder, though he never directly mentioned or blamed any individual or insurance company in particular. His condition was quickly worsening. What he first described as a near-constant burning/twitching in both ankles/calves, in 2022 soon added themselves into a bigger pile of problems, and by 2023, he claimed to have been experiencing back and genital pain as well as numbness in his groin. Sometime after these postings, Mangione underwent surgery, where screws got fused to his spine, in the goal of realigning the bones and properly keeping them in place. Seemingly all I could read on the internet was that I was destined to chronic pain, and a desk job for the rest of my life. That representation was terrifying, and inaccurate, and completely destroyed me until I realized the silent majority of fusions are highly successful, he wrote on Reddit. Though initially successful, the pain reportedly returned, and about 6 months later, by June 2024, he was on Twitter venting his dismay. "My experience with the medical profession, and yours is probably similar, is that doctors are basically worthless unless you carefully manage them, and 2/3 of them are worthless even in that case," was the content of one of his last posts. "Tell them you are unable to work/do your job. We live in a capitalist society," he wrote in his last Reddit post. "I've found that the medical industry responds to these key words far more urgently than you describing unbearable pain, and how it's impacting your quality of life." Past comments he's made shows that he justified his crime with what he perceived as an act of revolution against those who were unable to cure his sufferings, citing the following in his last Goodreads review: "When all other forms of communication fail, violence is necessary to survive." You may not like his methods, but to see things from his perspective, it's not terrorism, it's war and revolution. Especially following his trip to Asia in early 2024, Mangione was consumed by overbearing thoughts regarding humanity, and devoted much time and effort to discussing and researching topics such as societal and political structures, worrying technological advances, religion in the modern world, excessive media consumption, and the possible eventual downfall of humanity. Passionate, curious, and always eager to learn more, he is said to have been a very polite, kind, open-minded, and down-to-earth individual. He was always looking for ways to work on self-improvement, and his activity on social media and interactions with online acquaintances showed his devotion to feed his curiosity. On his socials, Twitter/X in particular, his latest posts focused on matters regarding mental health. He shared studies about growing anxiety in the current generation, critiquing the political system and online culture, and how technology was especially a prominent contributor to this significant mental health decline in the year of 2024. According to Gurwinder Bogle, author and fellow researcher interested in these matters, and perhaps the last person Luigi Mangione conversed with before his disappearance and arrest, Mangione often echoed some of Ted Kaczynski's ideas, particularly the belief that humans were losing control over their lives due to technology and modern culture, where people tend not to think for themselves. He believed this was already happening, which led him to take a great interest in how we can restore and reclaim control over our minds. What disturbed him most in modern-day society can be captured through an experience during his travels to Japan. He said the country was full of NPCs, a term used for non-player characters in video games, more commonly used as a modern-day word used to describe people who don't think for themselves. He stated there was a scary lack of free will in the country, though initially drawn to the Japanese culture for the people's grand and peculiar sense of honor. He expressed anger over how police officers wouldn't cross a red light even if a man was experiencing an emergency on the other side. This incident passionately upset him and deepened how he perceived today's society, where he claims to be a lack of empathy and connection, in a world where people are separated and limited by politics, societal norms, and popular belief/culture. Furthermore, according to his acquaintance Aaron Burnett, he believed culture was downstream of technology, arguing that technological developments were causing changes in control that resulted in behaviors he called NPC-like. Amongst the things he believed was taking people's agency away from them was shallow entertainment, highlighting how modern society is addicted to consuming useless information and things that create dopamine. For example, he believed video games stopped people from making real accomplishments in the real world, and called out social media as a major issue. He feared he, too, was being consumed by distractions and sought to reclaim his agency, self-control, and free will. This desire for autonomy may have mirrored his frustration with how his health claims, along with those of other Americans, were continually dismissed and controlled by those in power, who used AI and similar program technologies to manage the American people's well-being. Perhaps he saw his actions not only as a form of rebellion against the forces he believed were controlling him and holding him back, but also as a form of resistance against their use of AI, which he already believed was slowly infiltrating and controlling the human race. Though his original motives were good, his points well made, and the changes he sought to make in the world beneficial for everyone, his method of making his message heard through violence arguably lacked thought. While he meticulously planned his shooting and his notes prove how carefully he shaped his plan to ensure that no one else, or innocent civilians, as he called them, would get hurt, the resources he consulted to start his revolution were outdated, questionable, long criticized by the public, and rather lenient toward violence. Mangione's good read account, still made public for people to see the books he's read, and the reviews he's written, discloses a wide range of books that address political and societal matters. Particularly, there was one peculiar thing found on this page that garnered the most attention, a 4 out of 5-star review he wrote of Kaczynski's manifesto titled Industrial Society and Its Future, infamous for its radical views. The 262-word manifesto found on Mangione during his arrest equally embodied some shared opinions between the both, and is said to have reflected some of Kaczynski's sentiments. The book, an essay published in 1995, is essentially a manifesto, which is a public declaration of principles, intentions, or beliefs, often associated with a crime, political movement, or cause, where Ted Kaczynski wrote of his criticism of industrialization and his perception of technology as a threat to human freedom and creativity. The manifesto argues that the Industrial Revolution of 1760 created a wide variety of interconnected problems, ranging from environmental destruction to human adaptation to technology, and its link with those in power. The text highlights the supposed socio-political order that technological advances bring, stripping humans of their freedom and potential. The author is regarded as a terrorist for the acts of violence he used to reinforce his beliefs. He hoped to create a movement that would popularize rejecting technology by using a bombing campaign, targeting innocent individuals who supported or played a role in the advancement of modern technological society. Ultimately, the current situation with Luigi Mangione parallels Ted Kaczynski's Unabomber movement of the 1970s, where a skilled mathematician turned killer, who developed a strong aversion to modern technology, chose violence to express his opinion. He was long argued to be somewhere between a genius who did his best to make a point and a terrorist who did nothing but harm. R. J. Martin, a former roommate of Mangione, who lived with him between January and June 2022, described how the subject of the book first introduced itself to Mangione through the Hawaiian Residency's book club, which Mangione himself founded. I actually proposed that we read, kind of half-jokingly, that we read the Unabomber Manifesto, Martin told the media. He described the book club's discussion regarding their read as lively and animated, but normal, stating that Mangione hadn't seemed particularly passionate about it, and that nothing stood out to him regarding the discussion they shared. However, the review he left on Goodreads said otherwise, as he left his thoughts on its subject, where he wrote the following passage: "It's easy to quickly and thoughtless write this off as the manifesto of a lunatic, in order to avoid facing some of the uncomfortable problems it identifies. But it's simply impossible to ignore how prescient many of his predictions about modern society turned out." He added, "While these actions tend to be characterized as those of a crazy Luddite, however, they are more accurately seen as those of an extreme political revolutionary." In light of Mangione's arrest, Ted Kaczynski's brother David spoke out, sharing in an interview with NBC News that he hopes the accused of Thompson's murder didn't use his brother as a key model for his act. "His actions are like a virus," David Kaczynski said regarding his brother's possible influence on Mangione. "They could be like a virus unless they understand he was a very angry and disturbed man. It doesn't mean his ideas are ideas of a lunatic, but his behavior, I believe, is the behavior of a lunatic. To the extent that he may have attributed at all to sort of normalizing or recasting the violent acts as beneficial to humanity is a terrible mistake," he added. "To the feds, I'll keep this short, because I do respect what you do for our country. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial, some elementary social engineering, basic CAD, a lot of patience. The spiral notebook, if present, has some straggling notes and to-do lists that illuminate the gist of it. My tech is pretty locked down because I work in engineering, so probably not much info there. I do apologize for any strife or traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. A reminder, the US has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly number 42 in life expectancy. UnitedHealthcare is the indecipherable largest company in the US by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, Walmart. It has grown and grown, but as our life expectancy. No, the reality is, these indecipherable have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously the problem is more complex, but I do not have space, and frankly I do not pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the full argument. But many have illuminated the corruption and greed decades ago, and the problems simply remain. It is not an issue of awareness at this point, but clearly power games at play. Evidently I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty." In Mangione's manifesto, he referenced filmmaker Michael Moore, creator of Sicko, a documentary that takes an in-depth look at how the state of healthcare in the United States is harming its citizens. Mangione also names Rosenthal, author of New York Times best-selling book An American Sickness, How Healthcare Became Big Business, and How You Can Take It Back. British researcher Gurwinder Bogle, presumably the last person Mangione was in contact with, spoke about the last time they spoke in May, 2 months before he isolated himself from human contact in July. In an interview with a news outlet, Bogle detailed how Mangione repeatedly expressed that those in his surroundings, such as his family and friends, were not on the same wavelength as him, and that he kept repeating these very words, eager for a community of like-minded people, which was the reason he reached out to Bogle in the first place. According to the author and researcher, Mangione had also voiced his frustrations with the US healthcare system and compared it to those of other countries that are free, such as the UK, which he seemed to idolize. He reportedly also brought up his trip to Japan, where he felt was an extremely isolating place, presumably because of his experience in the country, where he witnessed their disregard towards human connection and how they prioritize law and societal rules first. Bogle ends the interview suggesting Luigi Mangione was lonely. In July, Mangione completely isolated himself from the world. He stopped posting on social media and cut off all means of communication with friends and family, who went asking around the area and tried getting in contact with him, though their efforts continuously fell in vain. November 18, 2024, just over 2 weeks before his arrest, Kathleen Mangione filed a missing person report for her son in San Francisco, claiming she hadn't spoken to him since July and providing them with a recent picture of the latter. She told police she had no clue of his whereabouts or current location, and that all she knew was that he worked for the now-closed company TrueCar, formerly located in San Francisco. In the few-day period of time where the prime suspect in Thompson's murder was yet to be found, this missing person report ultimately led San Francisco police to believe Luigi was responsible for the crime. They informed the FBI, who, in turn, informed other authorities, which led to the identification of the shooter as Luigi Mangione. Following this, he was apprehended in Pennsylvania on gun charges, and just a few hours later, charged in Manhattan with murder, with more charges to follow. Thompson's shooting incident occurred in one of the most touristy spots in the city, on a busy day filled with passerbys who came to see the Rockefeller trees lighting ceremony. In fact, there were many random individuals who witnessed the shooting, one even barely passing the shooter by as it happened. It is important to note that since the case is still ongoing as of December 2024, and information comes from various sources such as federal authorities and the NYPD, there are some discrepancies when comparing the timestamps. This is particularly evident regarding the shooter's use of an e-bike. Additionally, there is a lack of detailed and photographic evidence concerning the items found in the backpacks, as well as which backpacks they were found in, since it appears the shooter had several backpacks in his possession from his arrival in New York to his capture in Pennsylvania. Another source of confusion would be the many jackets the supposed shooter is seen wearing through the timeline. On November 24, 10 days before the shooting, Luigi Mangione made his first move in the plan he had meticulously crafted for months ahead of Thompson's killing. In order to avoid identification processes such as security screenings, use of a personal credit card, ID card, and revealing his face to security cameras, the suspect took a Greyhound bus to New York, a transportation method where use of ID is not necessary, and one has the choice to pay in cash. Authorities found no footage that revealed where exactly he boarded the bus. All that is known is that it started its route in Atlanta. Immediately upon his arrival at the Port Authority bus terminal in Manhattan, he reportedly took a cab straight to the Hilton Midtown, where Thompson was staying, and spent approximately 30 minutes walking the streets around it. After that, Luigi Mangione made his way to the New York City Premium Hostel located on Manhattan's Upper West Side, where he checked in at 11 p.m. using a fake New Jersey driver's license, where he disguised his true identity under the name Mark Rosario. He once again used cash to pay for his stay and resided in this hostel during the entirety of his stay, up until the morning of the shooting. He shared the room he rented with approximately 4 to 6 roommates, 2 of which told police they never saw his face because he always kept a mask on. However, he did end up lowering his mask for a moment, which ended up serving as key evidence to his identification. Despite how prudent he had been all along in concealing his identity, the hostel's security camera footage managed to capture the entirety of his face, as he briefly lowered his mask during a conversation he shared with a female hostel clerk. He supposedly flirted with the receptionist, who in turn asked him to lower his mask so that she can quote-unquote see his pretty smile. For an unknown reason, Mangione is considered checked out of the hotel November 29th, although guests do get checked out unwillingly if they don't come present themselves to the desk by a certain time, so this is presumably the case, though his whereabouts of this day are still a mystery. It is believed by police that he came back and resumed his stay in the same hostel by the next day. His next documented actions are from the day of the shooting, December 4, 2024. At 5:34 a.m., the alleged shooter presumably leaves the hostel by electric bike, and next appears on security camera footage at 5:41 a.m. at 54th Street and 6th Avenue, where he paced the street, walking back and forth in front of the Hilton Hotel, where Brian Thompson was scheduled to attend UnitedHealth Group's annual investors conference meeting. At 6:17 a.m., the shooter was caught on camera leaving his set location for a stop at a nearby Starbucks on West 56th, where he purchased a plastic water bottle and an energy bar, both of which were eventually recovered by the police. At around 6:20 a.m., a security camera outside Stage Star Deli on West 55th Street films him walking west towards the hotel again, located about 175 feet away from the Starbucks. On his way back, around 15 minutes before the shooting, the alleged shooter is believed to have spoken with someone on a phone call, where police and experts think he conversed with someone who helped him locate Thompson and time his shooting, as precise as his timing was. The suspect is said to have arrived back to his set spot at 6:39 a.m., 5 minutes before Thompson got out of his hotel, which was actually right across from the building where his meeting was being held. The shooter strategically positioned himself in the back of a parked car as he followed Thompson, getting ready to attack. At about 6:45 in the morning, after Brian Thompson crossed from his hotel to the other side of the street, he was just about to enter the building for his annual investors meeting when a masked man approached him from the behind and fired multiple shots in his lower spine, at what is believed to be around the same place Luigi Mangione has his spine disc issue, and shot him once in the leg. Thompson didn't die on scene, but was pronounced dead soon after in a hospital. The shooter ran away and fled the scene by bike. By 6:48 a.m., he entered Central Park, still riding what seems to be an electric bike, at the 60th Street and Center Drive entrance, where police found the same gray backpack the shooter was believed to have worn during his crime. On each of the 3 bullets used in the shooting and subsequently found at the scene, a word was carved. Deny, defend, depose. These words mirror delay, deny, defend, originating from the book Delay, Deny, Defend, Why Insurance Companies Don't Pay Claims, and What You Can Do About It, which criticizes insurance companies for their dirty practices. As of today, it is still a popular motto used by the general public and critics alike to criticize insurance companies that avoid paying claims. The delay is the company's common practice of stretching out the process as long as possible. The deny represents unfairly denying claims, and often unfairly refusing to offer coverage to those in need, and the defend refers to the insurance company's practice of defending their decision by intimidating the user with use of lawyers and complicating and lengthening the process. Whereas this phrase is used to describe insurance providers' dirty practices, Mangione's twist on it invites for the pursuit of a revolution, or an action to be made. In his case, the motto was changed a bit to include the word depose, which ironically means to remove from office suddenly and forcefully, or to testify, and make a clear statement. Hoping to find a weapon, they waited to open the backpack until it was brought to a lab, only to find a stack of Monopoly play money, and a Tommy Hilfiger jacket that doesn't match the jacket worn during the shooting, but of which authorities claim he had worn at some point in the day. The Monopoly money is of great symbolic importance in this case, as it seems to support the popular belief that UnitedHealthcare is a ripoff that steals money from patients, and that it is itself a monopoly, as suggested by experts in the psychiatric field and the general public. With Brian Thompson appointed CEO of UnitedHealthcare, the enterprise witnessed extraordinary monetary growth in less than 3 years. According to Forbes, in 2023, the company reported a new high with its net income of $22.3 billion, placing them 8th on the list of global companies with the highest revenues and 4th highest in the United States, surpassing Google. And yet, Americans seeking monetary support from the insurance company are suffering as never before under their immense power and wealth. The incident of Thompson's killing shed light on their practices that have long been critiqued. UnitedHealth, the largest health insurance company in the U.S., has been allegedly using a deeply flawed AI algorithm called NH-Predict instead of basing their decision in approving a claim, or not off of doctor or specialist judgments. The algorithm has a well-known error rate of 90%, and has led to many lawsuits being filed against the company because of the hundreds of thousands of citizens it wronged, and the many elderly it killed. Many patients were even left with bills hundreds of thousands of dollars in worth for a crucial one-night stay at the hospital, and following the incident, the outraged public made it a trend to share their upsetting experiences. UnitedHealth has undeniably grown into a monopoly, overtaking many of the country's leading healthcare facilities, insurance providers, and pharmaceutical provider facilities. Their sole goal is evidently money. Every coverage they deny brings them money, bringing anger to patients who want to be able to afford the care that they need. In fact, in 2022, UnitedHealthcare Group's CEO alone reportedly made $20.9 million in total compensation for their use of their flawed AI program. In recent times, lawsuits against UnitedHealth and NaviHealth have been rooted out of accusation for breach of contract, breach of good faith, breach of fair dealing, unjust enrichment, and insurance law violations in numerous states. They have listed damages that range from emotional distress, disgorgement, and other claims, among their wish to put an end to the AI-based claims denials. It is believed that the bag of monopoly money was purposefully dropped off for police to find as he was on the run from the shooting, with some even guessing he had intended to disperse it around Thompson's body. The Monopoly board game's origin aligns with his view of corporate America, as it was originally invented in 1904 under the name of the landlord's game in goal of illustrating the consequences of capitalism and monopolies. In fact, Mangione was also caught in a McDonald's location that also happens to host its own yearly Monopoly game. A Starbucks water bottle, an energy bar wrapper, and a burner phone were also found discarded in the Central Park area. Although these items did give authorities some DNA by providing them with partial fingerprints, they were of no great help to identifying the suspect while they searched for him, as analyses concluded that they did not match any criminal databases until days later, when they caught Mangione and said that the fingerprints at the crime scene did indeed match his fingerprints. By 7 a.m., the shooter ditched his bike, hailed and entered a taxi northbound at 86th Street and Amsterdam Avenue, and went to a bus terminal with interstate buses, though there was no footage found of him entering or leaving a bus. Despite his seemingly meticulous planning in ditching any material that would make him easy to identify as the criminal, his later capture revealed that he either forgot or chose to keep his fake IDs with him for the next few days. Later on the day of the shooting, December 4th, at about 6:30 p.m., cops entered the hostel Mangione stayed at. By Thursday, they concluded that nothing peculiar or suspicious was found. A tourist who stayed at the hostel claims that his roommates were denied entry from their room by police, and that they were all very shocked when they found out about the investigation. 5 days later, December 9, 2024, in the small town of Altoona, Pennsylvania, just over 4 hours away from Manhattan, regular elderly customers of the area gathered at McDonald's to share a meal. In an interview, one of the men shared that he and his friends had been joking about a certain masked man who wore a brown beanie and a dark jacket, and who sat just a few rows down from them, laughing while they pointed out that he resembled who they called the shooter from New York. The interviewee said that they had no idea it was actually him, since he insisted that the man had certainly heard them because they were speaking loudly and he was only about 10 feet away, but that he had no reaction whatsoever. An employee overheard their conversation, decided to call the police, aware of the rewards, but ended up dialing the wrong number instead of the one required to get the reward, and was apparently upset because they didn't get the $60,000 offered by authorities. Instead, angry citizens who didn't want Mangione to get caught, or believed he was framed, leaked the employee's name in hatred, and left a flood of one-star reviews to that specific McDonald's location. According to police, the suspicious man sat at the back row of the McDonald's, nearest to the washrooms, hash brown in hand, with a laptop open on the desk and a backpack by his side. When a pair of police officers approached him, they asked him to pull down his mask, to which he abided, and the officers said that they immediately recognized him as the shooter they were seeking, and that they didn't even think twice about it. When they asked him for identification, he reportedly handed them a New Jersey driver's license ID card with the name Mark Rosario, the same he used to check into the New York hostel. When the police officers then asked him whether he had been to New York City recently, he reportedly became quiet and started to shake. After failing to find any sort of records that matched the ID he gave them, they told him he was under a police investigation, and he then told them his real name, Luigi Mangione. They asked him why he had used a fake name, to which he replied, "I clearly shouldn't have." There are no pictures to support this claim, but according to the police's complaint, in the backpack by his side, they found a black 3D printed pistol, more commonly referred to as a ghost gun because it is an illegal arm untraceable to authorities, with a black silencer that was also 3D printed and apparently matched that of the shooters, numerous fake ID cards, and a manifesto. Although both authorities and news publishers including New York Times refused to publish the test, a private journalist eventually released it. In their report, authorities highlighted his line, "These parasites had it coming," and said the text contained, "Ill will towards corporate America, although it clearly contained no threats. He appeared to view the targeted killing of the company's highest-ranking representative as a symbolic takedown and a direct challenge to its alleged corruption and power games, asserting in his note he is the first to face it with such brutal honesty, read an NYPD intelligence report released at the time obtained by CNN. When investigators reached out to Mangione's mother after the first photos of the suspect had been released by the NYPD, she said that she wasn't certain it was her son, but told them that the shooting, quote-unquote, might be something that she could see him doing. Perhaps this statement of hers infers that he has a mental illness no one else is aware of, as her reply greatly contradicts that of Luigi's past and current acquaintances and friends. However, the last person Mangione was in contact with revealed in an interview that Mangione's supposed handwritten manifesto was completely unlike him, and that the only explanation to this, if he were really the text's author, would be if he were mentally unstable at the time of its writing. The shooter was caught by CCTV cameras pacing the street up and down before the shooting, and very clearly shot at Thompson. Meanwhile, another person presumed to be in hiding continued to lurk in the shadows, as if staying on patrol on the very same street that the incident took place on. Despite Mangione's insistence in his manifesto that he acted alone, he did write that it was easy to follow through with his plan thanks to some elementary social engineering, which, as Daily Mail UK has pointed out, is defined by the Department of Defense to be a method of manipulation that literally means the art of manipulating people into performing actions or divulging confidential information, rather than by breaking in or using technical cracking techniques. This suggests he pulled his information out of an insider in Thompson's company, or someone close to him. A witness reported to a news outlet that they saw who they thought seemed just like the alleged shooter loitering in the same spot on the Hilton Hotel street all night, not even once leaving the street's corner to shoot anyone or go elsewhere. Although some have taken this as a hint to suggest that this individual was Luigi, and that he was framed, DNA evidence among other things points to otherwise. It would be far more reasonable to conclude that this second masked person was someone who helped Luigi in his shooting by helping him locate his target so precisely. Another detail that suggests someone helped him plan his attack is the peculiarity of how Luigi didn't seem worried about timing from his stop at Starbucks, and that he was back exactly when Thompson would exit his hotel early to cross the street to his meetings building, when its start was only to be at 8 a.m., which makes him about an hour and 15 minutes early. The shooter also knew about the meeting's time and date even before it would be publicly announced 2 days after his arrival in the city. Brian O'Shea, who has significant experience in U.S. Army intelligence, and whose investigations for clients in his firm have included murder cases, spoke of an SUV that caught his eye from the footage released from the shooting in an interview with Daily Mail UK. Right as Brian Thompson steps into view of the two dome cameras, that SUV steps on its brake lights for no apparent reason and holds them there, he said. Not only does he say it was suspicious because it undoubtedly had a dashcam that would give a perfect view of the shooter's face, but he didn't hesitate to make his move right across from it, even when its lights, that suddenly turned on just as Brian Thompson was about to enter the hotel, were giving a clear view of his face, shining right on him. He adds that stepping on the brake lights is a fairly common tactic used by surveillance teams to notify of a nearby target's presence. Once the CCTV camera footage of the shooting was released, perfectly capturing the moment of the shooting from a good angle, the reaction from both citizens and authorities stood on common ground, both agreeing that the killing was well planned but the shooter's use of the gun lacked experience. In the NYPD's official statement released following this incident, they debated whether or not he was an experienced shooter. Though he seemed quick, put together, and confident in the act, many were quick to point out that there was clearly a malfunction with the arm in the beginning of the shooting, and again following each shot because of a jam most likely caused by the silencer attached to the arm. He handled this issue swiftly, and is seen manipulating the arm to clear the jam and reload it between each shot. Weeks after the shooting, it was revealed by Luigi Mangione's travel companions during his trip to Asia that he visited a shooting range in Thailand months before the shooting, which perhaps explains his experience in gun handling but still evident lack of expertise. There was a 5-day-long manhunt to catch the CEO's shooter, and the NYPD scourged the entire country to find him. They didn't cancel any holiday festivities because they said themselves that he was almost certainly no danger to civilians, as it seemed to be a very targeted shooting, since he had no care to harm any bypassers or witnesses to the crime, and waited specifically for Thompson to arrive. His manhunt was widely controversial among Americans, since it was very full-blown and over-exaggerated, taking into account how he posed no threat to others, and not even nearly as much attention was given to other shooters or criminals. In fact, homicides are not at all rare in such a big city as New York, and yet these cases rarely get spoken about so much, or let alone get such wide-scale manhunts. From the perspective of many American citizens, the measures taken were utterly unnecessary and over-exaggerated, as one of attempts at finding the suspect included sending scuba diver troops to dive into Central Park lakes. Multiple police forces got involved to assist in the search, drones were sent off, K-9 units were used, and officers were sent to carry out door-to-door questioning.
He's so rich! He's so rich! He's so rich!
Same number.
He's so rich!
The public saw their reaction and regarded their care towards millionaire Thompson's death as having a stark contrast when compared to their reaction towards a common citizen who doesn't have over $43 million in their possession, and perceived this situation, which is in their words, a conflict opposing the 99% of Americans versus the 1% of elite in the States. On social media, many expressed their outrage concerning the authorities' reaction, and people even joked that this was the only time Americans ever all agreed on something and actually united themselves together. In the midst of the countrywide manhunt, despite the authorities' many rewards that ranged from $10,000 to $50,000, instead of giving in tips or helping with the investigation in any way, many refused to help, while others made light of the situation, and even went as far as to holding look-alike contests of the shooter for fun, which caused people dressed almost identically as him to walk around, and furthermore hardened the authorities' search. In fact, both the official and look-alike versions of clothes and items the shooter could be seen wearing in the pictures released by the NYPD almost immediately sold out. However, the case has only just begun, with the public outraged and opinionated that he should be freed, convinced there was another individual involved, supported by Luigi himself claiming he is not guilty, though there has not yet been any solid evidence to prove otherwise. It isn't a question of whether Luigi is guilty or not. This case is a window of much greater problems that englobes power abuse, and Mangione is a mere pawn in a greater scheme. For many, supporting Luigi Mangione isn't about denying his crime, but about standing in solidarity with the yearly hundreds of thousands of innocent American citizens killed by U.S. health insurance, rebelling against corrupt American systems, and fighting for the fair judicial trial Luigi Mangione has the right to.
Just knowing his personality, I would completely trust him. Even knowing what I know now, if he 100% did it, I would feel completely safe being alone in a room with him.
He was just such a thoughtful and deeply compassionate person at everything he did. It just makes me sad to think about how alone he must feel.